Easter eggs are often well hidden within a video game, but some Easter eggs go a step further than that by being extremely subtle to boot. So not like this one from the Futurama game, which is a literal Easter egg. I wonder how they thought that one up. In contrast, these subtle or sneaky Easter eggs tucked away in some of our favourite games might take a bit of figuring out, but the payoff is that much greater. Because who doesn't love feeling clever because they didn't fail to catch a not obvious reference? Not us is who, and that's a grammatically correct quadruple negative. Told you we were smart. Now let's all get together and enjoy these 7 Easter eggs that made us feel like geniuses. Congratulations to us all around, and watch out for minor spoilers for the following games.
Kazumi Totaka is a Japanese composer and sound director best known for composing music for loads of Nintendo games and being the voice of Yoshi. An incredible achievement in its own right, frankly. As mentioned previously, Totaka has been responsible for compositions in tons of Nintendo games, but one of his works stands out in particular because he has snuck it in as an Easter egg into almost every game he's worked on. Totaka's song, as it's known, is a 19-note melody that was first discovered on the Mario Paint title screen, and it sounds like this. Not what I'd call the most melodious piece of music Totaka ever composed, but every time we find where those 19 notes have been hidden in a Nintendo game, we can't help but feel smart for having uncovered another part of Totaka's decades-spanning Easter egg hunt. This tune has shown up in Pikmin 2, where it's played with haunting chimes. It's also in Link's Awakening and the recent Switch remake, where it's grudgingly being played by someone on an ocarina. And it's in Mario Kart 8, where you can just about hear the Yoshi singing it underneath the background music. The series where Totaka's song is most common, however, is Animal Crossing, with which Totaka has been involved since the very first game. In fact, the character of KK Slider, the dog musician, is based on Totaka right down to the distinctive eyebrows. KK's name in Japanese is also Totakeke, if you needed further evidence. Anyway, if you want to hear a full version of Totaka's song, you can request it from KK Slider himself in Animal Crossing New Horizons by asking for KK Song, at which point you'll get a lovely rendition of this, it has to be said again, quite unpleasant melody. One of those rare concerts where you won't be asking him to play the old stuff.
Environmental malfunction. Laboratory subsection 6. All lab chiefs, please report in.
We better not take any chances. Not tonight. Use my elevator to get down there. You know the code?
Yeah, 0451.
If you live inside a video game, then firstly, how are you watching this video? And secondly, may I offer you one piece of security advice?
Get the door open, so...
405. Check my line.
Should you ever need to choose a PIN number to lock a door or a safe or the interface for an advanced artificial intelligence, I strongly recommend you don't use the number 0451.
Might also want to check out the comm band next to it. The code's 0451.
These digits seem random enough, but in game after game you'll find 0451 is a surprisingly common and therefore guessable passcode, such as in the original Deus Ex, where it unlocks the comms van parked outside the UNATCO building. Cut to the original BioShock, where 0451 was the code used to secure this door lock and then, in a massive violation of security best practice, written down on a nearby piece of paper, because splicers have terrible short-term memory. In Dishonored, on the other hand, someone has stashed a safe in the sewers of Dunwall and set the combination lock with code 451. If that someone had assumed you were above touching things you found in a sewer, they hadn't reckoned with your commitment to hoovering up loot. There are dozens of games, both old and new, which feature this mysteriously ubiquitous code 0451. And the reason behind it all is a decades-old recurring homage to a legendary video game developer by the name of Looking Glass Studios.
You are Triop's only contact on station. Communications are out, and there is evidence of biological contamination.
Looking Glass Studios, previously known as Looking Glass Technologies, was an American game development company that produced such stone-cold classics as Ultima Underworld and Thief. It was in Looking Glass's influential 1994 game System Shock that 90s gamers might have had their first encounter with the number 451, where it appears as the passcode for the very first door in the very first level. At the time, the number 451 was both a brainy literary reference alluding to Ray Bradbury's dystopian novel Fahrenheit 451, but also, this number was the key code that Looking Glass used to secure the keypad lock on the actual real-life door to their studio in Cambridge, Massachusetts. This is all fine and good as long as no potential burglars are aware that you're all Ray Bradbury nerds.
Level 2 contains the research laboratories. 3 houses the Department of Maintenance, and the storage cells are on level 4.
After Looking Glass closed in the year 2000, the number 451 evolved into a discreet Easter egg recognising this celebrated studio. Naturally, former Looking Glass staff such as game luminaries Warren Spector, creator of Deus Ex, and Ken Levine, creator of Bioshock, snuck it into their post-Looking Glass projects.
Why are you so keen on lockpicking and code breaking?
If you put a person in a cage, they develop an interest in such things.
I suppose so.
And I won't be locked up again.
As we've seen, video games would go on tipping the hat to Looking Glass's legacy. No wonder David Sarif uses this numerical Easter egg as the code on his private elevator in Deus Ex Human Revolution, and will not stop going on about it.
Code is 0451. You know the code. 0451. I'm not paying you to stand there. Get to the labs. 0451.
The Night Sister and her warrior kin were seduced by the power that lurks within. Avoid the ruin, or suffer the same fate.
In certain corners of the internet, comparing something challenging, anything at all, to Dark Souls is a crime punishable by 1 billion angry tweets. An experience that we'd say is the Dark Souls of comparing things to Dark Souls. Oh no. When it comes to other games though, the fact is that Dark Souls was phenomenally successful and critically acclaimed and casts a long shadow. That means it has inspired game developers either to borrow certain game mechanics or just copy the dang thing wholesale. I'm thinking of you, 2014's Lords of the Fallen. I'm also the only person who's thought about 2014's Lords of the Fallen since 2014. There's no getting away though from the fact that Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order owes something of a debt to Dark Souls. You know what, I'm just going to put this thing on airplane mode. There are the same respawning enemies, same unlockable shortcuts, and the same taste in creepy characters who chuckle ominously when you finish speaking to them.
An enlightenment when I was lost in the dark.
Wonder if he's a good guy or a bad guy. One of the major mechanics Fallen Order borrows is the idea of rest spots that allow you to fully recharge your health items. In Dark Souls they're bonfires, in Fallen Order they're Jedi meditation spots. I have a meditation spot too, only I call it the beanbag in the living room. The first open world planet you visit in the game, Bogano, is riddled with secrets and shortcuts, but one particular area caught our eye. Manage to scrabble up the walls in this cavern without sliding back down on your bum, and you'll get to this small room that has a burnt out bonfire and a small stool. You know, like you might use to rest. Maybe recharge a health item or two? In the fiction of the game, this secret area is a sanctuary where Jedi scholar Cordova rested during his own exploration of this hostile planet. For our money though, this pile of ashes that remains is also a subtle nod to the Dark Souls series that inspired the game so heavily. I mean, unless it's an even more subtle nod to 2014's Lords of the Fallen. Seems unlikely.
The Sega Dreamcast was an awesome console that never really saw the kind of success that it deserved, mostly because it went up against the all-conquering PlayStation 2. Also, the fact that one of its flagship games was called Seaman and involved you talking to a depressed fish with the face of a sad man.
It's a natural result of the world's economy becoming mixed. The prevalence of the internet, cheaper, faster travel. The end result will more likely be that there may be no more countries to speak of in the future.
Games for the Dreamcast came on GD-ROM, a higher capacity version of a CD-ROM, which was the kind of disc games used to come on in the olden days of the past. The other thing about CD-ROMs is that they were fundamentally the same as regular CDs, on which you would buy music from all your favourite late 90s bands, such as, I want to say, Third Eye Blind, Three Doors Down, Three Colours Red, a lot of threes. Wonder what that was about. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, GD-ROMs. So, Dreamcast games came on these discs, which was fine and good, but enterprising or possibly just extremely bored people might have tried to put their Dreamcast games in an actual CD player to see if anything happened. What definitely could happen was that the erratic screeching of a CD player trying to interpret a data disc could wreck your AV equipment, so Sega would include warnings that would play if people tried to put Dreamcast games in their home hi-fi.
This is a Dreamcast disc and is for use only on a Dreamcast unit. Playing this disc on a hi-fi or other audio equipment can cause serious damage to its speakers. Please stop this disc now.
This was the standard warning that played when you tried most discs, but other games included special Easter egg warnings delivered by characters from the games themselves, such as Ryo Hazuki from Shenmue, who, had things gone differently, I could absolutely see having a career as someone doing voiceover for dull technical announcements.
This disc is only intended for use in a Dreamcast console. Track number 1 contains game data, so don't go playing that track.
Our favourite, however, and the one that made us feel the smartest for having discovered it, was the one from swashbuckling Sky Pirate adventure Skies of Arcadia. That's because it featured a bunch of the main cast, all of whom played along with the idea that they were trapped inside the CD player where they couldn't do any adventuring.
Hey! Wait a minute! What do you think you're doing? This is a Dreamcast disc!
There is game data on track 1, so please don't use this disc in a normal CD player.
We can't save the world from a CD player, so just put us back in a Dreamcast so we can do our job.
Wonder how they all feel about being stuck in a game box in my attic for the last 17 years. Probably bad. Anyway, it was a cool little Easter egg for anyone who cared enough to go and find out if anything special happened if you tried the disc in a CD player, and it felt like a secret little bit of story for those smart enough to go looking. And in case anyone was wondering, yes, Seaman does this too, and yes, it's as upsetting as you'd expect.
If you continue, you run the risk of transmitting deadly viral diseases to your household electronic appliances. Jeez, some people.
Maybe this is specifically how Seaman killed the Dreamcast.
You see it in the movies. I wanted to retire from what I was doing, you know? From that line of work.
For the most part, a Grand Theft Auto game is about as subtle as a Grand Theft Auto game. But even a game franchise that built its brand on brash parodies of consumer culture, the media, and whatever else Rockstar was thinking about at the time, is not averse to doing a relatively subtle pop culture reference when the mood takes it. I say relatively subtle pop culture reference, we are still talking about a flaming car wreck, but then it wouldn't be Grand Theft Auto without one of those. In GTA 5, if you fly a helicopter out into the mountains between 7 and 8 PM, you might discover a high-stakes standoff taking place on a narrow peak, here near the Altruist camp. It appears that the Los Santos cops have cornered a couple of random non-player characters in a car on a remote clifftop. Give it a minute though, and you might come to realise that what you're looking at is a reenactment of the iconic ending of Ridley Scott's 1991 buddy road trip movie Thelma and Louise. And if you don't know how that movie ends, buckle up for one hell of a spoiler. Soon enough, the two female NPCs in the car, stand-ins for Gina Davis and Susan Sarandon, make the same climactic decision to just keep going and escape the law at all costs by hooning their car off a cliff. Unlike in the movie, the car is not a 1966 Ford Thunderbird, but instead a convertible Tornado. And also unlike in the movie, the car doesn't freeze frame in mid-air, rendering Thelma and Louise symbolically immortal as the screen fades to white, but instead it plummets all the way to the rocks below in a fiery wreck. You can see why they left this alternate ending off the DVD.
Okay, we've got to get out of here.
What? What do you think you're talking about? I just lost my daughter out there! How dare you tell me to go back outside?
I'm sorry about your daughter, but there isn't gonna be any rescue. We have to get out of here!
The Resident Evil series is full of Easter eggs, like the one where you piss off a giant fish, or the one where you search Wesker's desk. Less of an Easter egg, that one, more of an issue for HR. However, there's one Easter egg that you most likely missed in the original Resident Evil 3 because it's such a non-intuitive pain to unlock and requires a real meticulous attention to detail that can be hard to maintain when a 9-foot-tall tentacled bioweapon is trying to kill you. Anyone who's played a Resident Evil game will remember the files. They're the bits of paper, letters, and photos that you find scattered throughout the game that usually are memos from scientists asking why the sword-armed bioweapon they're developing keeps killing people, or diary entries from civilians complaining that their skin is falling off. There are 30 such files in Resident Evil 3, and each one is numbered, but the way the game is played, you're almost certainly not going to come across them in numerical order. If you do collect all 30 in the correct order, you unlock a secret, subtle Easter egg, a new file which replaces Game Instructions A, called Jill's Diary. Fingers crossed you didn't still need Game Instructions A. Anyway, this file is a real treat for Resi fans, containing as it does Jill's thoughts on the mansion incident, anecdotes about Chris Redfield punching people in the face, set up for future sequels, and anecdotes about Chris Redfield winking. Plus, it's the best explanation I've seen anywhere as to why Jill was still hanging around Raccoon City even though it was an on-fire hellhole populated entirely by angry zombies. It's because there's an Umbrella research facility there. Look, I said it was the best explanation, not that it was a good explanation. Anyway, problem solved, I guess.
Beloved and now sadly departed comedian Robin Williams made no secret of his love for the Legend of Zelda series. He and his wife even named their daughter Zelda after the eponymous princess.
What a great name for a girl, Zelda.
Reckon I can get away with calling my kid Daytona USA? I'd like to see the courts try and stop me. Williams' very personal connection with the series resulted in a number of collaborations between Nintendo and the comedian. This footage here is from the trailer for the 3DS remake of Ocarina of Time, in which he and his daughter Zelda Williams talked about their favourite moments from the game.
That's what I remember, cutting the bushes.
Or, how about getting that Master Sword?
Spent a lot of time hacking bushes.
Okay, big on gardening in the Williams household. Fair enough. When Robin Williams passed away 6 years ago, nearly 120,000 fans petitioned for him to be immortalised in the next Legend of Zelda game. Nintendo's statement to games website Polygon was non-committal, but didn't shoot down the idea either, saying that it heard the request and it would hold its memories of Robin Williams close. So when Breath of the Wild arrived 3 years later, fans went looking to find a reference to Robin Williams in the game. What they found was a character called Dato, who bears an uncanny resemblance to the late comedian. While this NPC doesn't have the name Robin, as the petition requested, we reckon there's one very good reason Dato is supposed to be him. You see, there's another character called Botrick, who looks very similar to fondly remembered former Nintendo president Satoru Iwata, who also sadly passed away during the development of the game. This suggests that Nintendo's preference for paying tribute to people in Breath of the Wild is to create a likeness of them with a different character name, effectively having them star as these characters. We're convinced Robin Williams lives on as Dato. That's what I'll call my kid, Dato, short for Daytona USA.
Well, that about wraps it up for those subtle and relatively subtle Easter eggs in games that made us feel kind of clever for having spotted them. If you'd like some more from Outside Xbox, and frankly, why wouldn't you, I invite you to check out this video on screen right now. That's from us at Outside Xbox. And if you'd like some cute, adorable, fun frolics from our friends at Outside Extra, alliteration, you can check out something from Luke and Ellen. That's also happening on screen right now. Please do. They're great fun. See you next time. Thanks for watching.